With us now is Natasha Hausdorff, an expert on international law. Thank you very much for joining us. When does a hospital stop being protected during a war?
Well, as a matter of customary international law, which is also reflected in Additional Protocol 1 to the Geneva Conventions, when it is being used, as we have seen in respect, as your report has indicated, of al-Shifa, by the hostile forces as a command and control center, also, of course, to keep munitions, and to operate their military strategy from, then that hospital is no longer a protected building, so long as a warning is given. And we've seen Israel do exactly that in relation to hospitals across the Gaza Strip, indicate their suspicions that they were being used for military purposes, issue warnings over matters of weeks now. At that point, it's right in international law, and it's commonly accepted, that a hospital being used for military purposes becomes a military target.
Right. You've mentioned the warnings and so on, but it doesn't mean that you can freely bomb a hospital with patients inside. Doesn't mean that patients inside can just walk out. So it's very complicated. What are the duties of Israel in this case in order to make sure this is not a violation of international law?
Well, of course, there are a number of factors that you have to consider in applying the laws of armed conflict to any strike. The first is whether the target of the strike is a legitimate military target, and on the basis that Hamas is using these hospitals for military purposes, it has become one. But one also has to consider the principle of proportionality, which requires the reasonable military commander to make an assessment weighing up the advantage that is sought by conducting a strike against a legitimate military target against the expected collateral damage. And in the case of al-Shifa, of course, the proportionality assessment has been completely skewed by Hamas war crimes, by Hamas violations of international law, by the fact that they are using a hospital which is full of doctors, nurses, sick patients, injured, in order to hide behind them as human shields. That impacts Israel's proportionality analysis, and therefore we have seen that rather than striking this legitimate military target because of the civilian presence, the IDF has instead gone in on the ground, as we've had reports also with humanitarian personnel, medics and Arabic speakers. And all of that is a reflection, I think, and the way I see it, it must be a reflection of Israel's proportionality analysis with respect to the civilians present in these military targets.
From past experiences like ISIS and others, what are the chances of a serious war crimes prosecution against Hamas in the future?
Well, what's extraordinary when we consider the present situation as against past instances of, for example, ISIS also using hospitals in order to hide behind civilians, is that this was called out by the international community. And here we're in fact seeing the reverse. We're seeing even the International Committee of the Red Cross suggest that Israel is in some way restrained from acting against terrorists that are hiding in a hospital and using it as a command center. So unfortunately, prior practice and situations that don't involve Israel seem to have very little bearing on the application by many international bodies of international law to the situation in Gaza vis-a-vis Israel. That, to me, is an application of lawfare. It is a misrepresentation, a misapplication, and an abuse of international law. And in those circumstances, I wouldn't be holding my breath for the violations, the real violations of international law here by Hamas to occasion comment. I have to stress that hospitals have an extremely protected high status in the laws of armed conflict. Even a military hospital is considered to be a protected building. And for Hamas to abuse international law to such an extent in order to generate pressure on Israel and in order to render itself, it seems, immune from legitimate, lawful self-defense by the IDF is extraordinary. The fact that we're not seeing this being called out across the international community and across NGOs whose job it is to point out abuses of international law and war crimes is disappointing, to say the least.
To say the least. Natasha Hausdorff, I thank you very much, an expert on international law. Thank you very much.